Of the United Veterans Organization of Nassau County. My name is Ed Allman. I'd like to thank Altice USA for providing the training of our crew and for the use of their studio facilities here in Hauppauge. The show is broadcast on public access television. You can also catch Veterans News on YouTube. Just go to Veterans News UVO, and that's it. By the way, UVO stands for United Veterans Organization. I'd like to say hello to our viewers in both Nassau and Suffolk County. I'd like to thank Sabrina Lacey, former commander of the Suffolk County VFW, for being our co-host. Thank you, Sabrina.
Thank you, Ed.
I'd like to thank our crew. Donald Caulfield is on camera 1. Dean Santiago is on camera 2. Our audio director is Loretta DeBrino. Our technical director, Beverly Wallman. Our regular director is Robert Lane. And our floor manager and production expert is Pat Galino. On camera 3, we have a space available. Jim Hessler left us, so we need a volunteer. So if you would like to volunteer, please give me a call. By the way, if you'd like to ask me any questions or make any comment on the show, or if you would like to become a member of our crew, just go to mardiv1 at optonline.net. That's mardiv for Marine Division 1 at optonline.net. Our guests today are Tony Sparaco.
Sparaco.
Okay, of Farmingdale, and Erle Mutz. Mutz, M-U-T-Z.
Correct.
Of West Babylon. Both men are Purple Heart recipients and member of the Military Order of Purple Heart. We'll talk to our guests in just a few minutes, but first let us remember some of our veterans who died recently. Dan Brandy of Rockville Center served as a gunner's mate in the U.S. Navy during the Korean War. He was the president of the Chosen Few Veterans Organization. Donald Harkness of Huntington served as an intelligence officer during the Korean War. John F. McTeague of Manhattan. He was waked at the O'Shea Funeral Home in Wantaw. He died August 24th, 1944, when his B-17 he was co-pilot of crashed over Germany. It was shot down over Germany. The DNA analysis on September 5th identified his remains. William McGuire of Rockville Center served as an officer during the Korean War. Thomas Hayes of Valley Stream and Belmore served in the Marines. Anthony Hannett of St. James served in the U.S. Army in Germany during the Vietnam War. Arthur George of Port Washington, the commander of the American Legion Post 509. William Bain of East Northport was a veteran of the U.S. Navy during the Vietnam War. Joseph Shibani, I think, of Belmore served in the Army during the Vietnam War. Francis Collins of Great Neck was a combat war veteran of the Korean War. William Christensen of Port Jefferson Station served in the U.S. Air Force during Korea. Harvey Manuel of St. James served in the South Pacific during World War II and as an officer with the Seabees. Arthur Kaufman of Deer Park was a proud veteran of the U.S. Air Force. And lastly, Douglas Hill of Huntington enlisted in the U.S. Navy in 1943 and was commissioned a naval aviator. If you know a veteran who died recently and you would like their name mentioned here, please email me at mardiv1 at optonline.net. That's the end of Veterans News. Now it's time for our guests. Welcome, Tony.
Thank you.
And welcome, Erle.
Thank you.
Okay. Both of you fellas are with the Purple Heart Association?
Military Order of the Purple Heart.
Military Order of the Purple Heart.
Chapter 417.
Okay. Erle, you're a adjutant of the organization?
Adjutant Finance Officer.
Okay, and finance officer. You have money?
Lots of it.
Lots of money. Good. Tony, you're the senior vice president?
Senior Vice Commander.
Vice commander.
Yes.
Okay. You're both here as Purple Heart recipients.
Correct.
So I'd really like you to tell me how you got wounded and when you got wounded? Earl?
Tony. No,
Tony?
Tony, go for it.
Tony. First thing I'd like to know is where were you
When I got wounded?
when you got wounded?
When I got wounded, I was with the 9th Infantry Division in Rakhine, Vietnam, in the Mekong Delta.
You were with the 9th Division.
9th Infantry.
I heard you were with the 1st Division first?
Prior to that, I was with the 1st Infantry Division from July 1968 until September of 1968.
The 1st Division is known as what?
Big Red 1, 1st
Big Red
Infantry
One.
Division in the Army.
It had a lot of movies about it, the Big Red One.
There are a lot of movies, yes they
Yeah.
are. Yep.
So how'd you get hurt? How'd you get from the 1st to the 9th Division?
Well, in September of 1968, the forces that were in charge of moving military troops in Vietnam decided that they wanted more combat infantrymen down the Mekong Delta, and there was a battalion of mechanized units that weren't functioning too well in the rice paddies and the mud in the monsoon season. So there was a trade. We went from the 1st Division to the 9th Division as a straight leg infantry battalion, and the 5th of the 60th Mechanized Battalion went up north and took over our base camp area in Lai Khe.
Okay. When you switched units,
Yes.
you just switched designations as well?
Oh, absolutely, yes. We had to go from the 1st Infantry Division to the 9th. So the 1st Division we were wearing on our left sleeve because that was our current unit. October 1, 1968, we had to move the Big Red 1 patch to our right shoulder to designate our former unit, and we wore the 9th Division on the left sleeve. So yes.
I wonder if the 9th Division, when they moved up north, did they become part of the 1st Division?
Yes, they did.
They
Yeah.
did?
Yes, they did. Yep.
Okay. All right. Tell me about how you got wounded.
Well, on February 14th, 1969, I was a radio telephone operator in the CP Group Company Command Post, and one of the jobs I had occasionally was to have CQ, charge of quarters. On February 14th, I was assigned charge of quarters for the night.
What is charge of quarters?
You sat in the orderly room where the company commander and first sergeant had their
Excuse me,
desks.
let me just add to that. He guarded the troops so that were sitting there and that were sleeping. So he would be the one that's sitting there and minding them while they attend to sleeping and get some sleep while they are off duty at that particular time.
Is
so
that
he was
true?
the eyes and O for them.
Yes, I was pretty
Okay.
much overseeing the company that night, and I had a radio with me that had contact with battalion headquarters. In the event anything happened, I would have had radio communications, and I would have been able to take whatever necessary deeds had to be done, in case we were attacked. So that day, we had a intelligence report that we were going to be mortared at 10 p.m. So my company commander gave me directions and instructions while I was on CQ, which started about 9 p.m., that at 10 minutes to 10, he wanted me to go out through the company area and get all the lights out in the event that we were mortared. So I sat there and was watching my watch, and at 10 to 10 I got up, and as I put my hand on the screen door to open it, there was a big white flash in front of me. A mortar round came in,
Wow.
and 10 minutes early, they didn't wait till 10, they got us early, and it exploded, and I received numerous shrapnel wounds to my chin, my shoulder, my chest, my arms, and that's how I got that was my first time I was wounded,
Wow.
and I was given a Purple Heart for that.
That's amazing. I never heard of intelligence being so accurate.
This was, it really was. Yeah.
But in addition to that, if he wasn't at that door doing his position that he had to
Right.
do, the other ones wouldn't have been alerted to know that there's something that's being
Sure.
transmitted now. And that's what the honor come into as well, because he could have just took care of himself and just
Yeah.
went the other way, so.
Wow.
And that's one of the significant things about the Purple Heart recipient. It's a lot that go behind everything else,
Yeah.
but they are honorable as we can get.
Yeah.
And thank you once again
You're
for
welcome.
what you
Very
did.
much.
Because you saved somebody's son or daughter
Yeah.
because of what your tenacity and what you did and your reaction to your time and
So-
service.
Tony, I know you got
the
2
country.
Purple Hearts.
Yes.
You tell me about the second one later.
Okay, sure.
First, I'd like to hear from Earl. When did you get to Vietnam?
I enlisted in 1967, April, and I was sent to boot camp in Paris Island, South Carolina, as all Marines are, on the East Coast anyway. I was sent to Vietnam in August of 1967, and I got back in September of 68. So I was over there in kind of the early years, I guess. I was with a group called the 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines after I got in country to Da Nang, and I was sent up to Dong Ha. That was my rear area at the time. And the 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines sent me up on a mountain called Con Thien, which is right up near the DMZ.
Sure.
And I spent my first baptism of fire the very first day when they told us that we had to jump off a chopper into the nearest foxhole, or else we were going to go back as a KIA or a
Right.
WIA. So that's exactly what I did. I obeyed orders pretty well. I didn't want to die.
Yeah.
So I jumped into the first foxhole, landed on somebody else's leg. Some of the guys that I went over with actually went back as wounded in action. I don't know that any of them got killed. Hope not, anyway.
Yeah.
So I was with the 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines. They put me into, I think it was Company B, and I was given an M79
Grenade
and an
launcher.
M16
It's a grenade launcher.
grenade launcher, correct?
Those
And
were wonderful.
They were
wonderful
separate
weapons.
units. Oh, I love that weapon.
Yes.
They were separate then. They didn't have the over and under. And so they took me down by the barbed wire and taught me how to use it and how to gauge distance with the sight on the front.
Right.
And all you have to do is, remember, you have to break it and then load it and then unbreak it. It's very, very manual kind of weapon, but it was a very hefty weapon to have
Yeah.
because it can throw a grenade or fire a grenade a lot longer than anybody's arm can. And they came in very handy in a very short period of time after that. We were there for approximately 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. Yeah, a little over a month actually. We went out on a number of patrols up into the DMZ. We went on an operation called Kingfisher. We were actually trying to find some of our previously dead Marines, but they were not to be found from a previous operation. And so we came back empty-handed, so to speak. We were sent back to Dong Ha shortly after that because of all the artillery that Con Thien was getting. And the commander at the time said we were going to be stopping at a little bridge called the C2 Bridge along the way, just as security for a couple of days. And so the first day we were there at the bridge, they had a barbecue. And they gave us all a steak and a beer, and it was really nice to have because we were heading back, you know, kind of depleted from men, being wounded, killed. And that night, that was October 14th, I'll never forget it, we were overrun because the barbecue that they had was naturally, they put it right near the CP tent because that's where all the officers and the staff were. So the first thing they hit was that. They threw satchel charges into our lines. They pretty much disabled our mortar section. Our 105s weren't operable, and they took 2 different M60s, which is our machine gun.
Machine guns.
Took it out into the bush, and they were using it back on us.
Wow.
Now, the first one, the only one I knew about, was right in front of us. I was in an L-shaped position. I was at the top of the long side of the L, and 3 holes in front of me was where the M60 was. And I didn't know. I saw those flashes and explosions, and so I knew we were getting hit, but I didn't know how bad or how many in front of us. You know, just that I know our hole, me and my partner, we didn't get hit that particular moment. After they took the M60 out in the bush and started using it back on us, I started using my M79. And I started lobbing rounds over to where I saw the muzzle flash from our red tracers coming from.
Right.
I know they weren't supposed to be going in at us. They're supposed to be going outbound. So I fired a few rounds, and it stopped momentarily. And a couple minutes later, it would start up again. So I fired a few more rounds. And I did this about 4 times, and I found out the next morning when they medevaced us that I had destroyed the M60 pretty much, you know, by hitting it with the grenades
Yeah.
successively. But I also was told when I was getting put on the chopper from being wounded that I also killed 7 or 8 of the enemy. I didn't really know which.
Yeah.
And I still struggle with that one today. But while I was firing the M79 rounds, they had I guess one of their NVA soldiers throwing grenades at me and my partner in foxhole, and our foxholes had a couple layers of sandbags around, so it never really got into the foxhole. However, every time we would come up, of course, there'd be a grenade there, and it would blast us. So they got pretty smart after a while. I heard all this screaming in the background from, I guess, his officer, telling him, throw 2 at one time. And so he threw one, we got down, and they threw another one. And while we were down from the first one, the second one was thrown, and we got hit with that. We had flash in our eyes, we had all kinds of superficial skin damage, our hands, our arms, our face. We had shrapnel all over the place. And we managed to hold on to our foxhole, and the next morning we, of course, had to recoup and go take our holes back.
Yeah.
There was a lot of blood trails from that
How
night.
long was the firefight?
It's about 3-4 hours.
That long?
Yeah, and we didn't have any illumination because everything that could use illumination was gone already. They already disabled it. Very smart people, the NVA.
Yeah.
And
How did you get wounded?
from the grenades, a succession of grenades being thrown at us, in person. And me and my partner, we collaborated, and we figured if we don't get this guy, he's going to get us. And so I said, I'll tell you what, you go over to the right side, put your rifle up on the top of the sandbags. I'll go on the left side as far as we can, and I'll try and spot him for you. And as soon as I tell you to spot him, then you just aim real quick right over the top of that little knoll that he was behind, and see if we can't take him out. And that's exactly what happened. The next time he came up to throw a grenade, I said,
Really?
now. He got up and blew the top of his head right off.
Wow.
So that was the end of him. So no more threat from that guy. So we just had to man our whole rest of the night until the morning. Once it starts getting daylight, you don't really see too much after that because they like to always at night. That's their best time of opportunity.
Where did you go for, where were you medevac to?
They medevaced me back to Dong Ha, both of us back to Dong Ha. We were taken care of medically by the corpsman back there. I love corpsmen, by the way.
Yeah.
My brother-in-law's one too. Yeah, for that reason.
Good.
They're just like Marines to me. There's no difference. So I just stayed in the back probably for about a week and a half. Then he sent me back to the same unit. And we bounced around Quang Tri for quite a while. And in late December or early January, before Tet, I was sent to CAC units. CAC units were combined action companies. In other words, we had Marines, there would be anywhere from 8 to 10 Marines. They'd be put in a village, in a compound, surrounded by barbed wire and other defenses. And we would live with them in the village constantly. And these were stationary CAC units. And I was in Cap Fox 1, Echo 1, and Echo 4. Echo 1 was surrounded for a few days after the Tet Offensive. But during the Tet Offensive, I was in Echo 4. And we were surrounded also for a number of days. I had a broken foot from another attack previous night. And so I was sent over to...
How many Purple Hearts did you receive?
Just one. Just
Okay.
one for being at the bridge that night.
All right.
I didn't argue the issue. To me, a Purple Heart, getting another Purple Heart wasn't a necessity. It was just, I was there, it happened,
Yeah.
and that's it. So I went, they sent me to China Beach, and I was there for a few weeks. And during that few weeks is when the Tet Offensive actually took place. And they were shooting them off the wire around the hospital.
Right.
So it was kind of hairy
Yeah.
for that period of time.
Okay. Tony,
Yes.
you had a second Purple Heart.
Yes.
You had, you didn't have corpsmen. You had medics?
We had medics in the Army, yes, we
Okay.
did. Yes.
What did the medic do to you?
Well, when I was wounded, I was way down the line from the rest of the company, which was spread out online. I was attempting to get my radio to my company commander, who was waiting for me. And what happened is when I stepped on the grenade and I went down, 4 medics, one from the CP group, our command post group, and one from each of the platoons, just came running down the dike.
All 4 of them.
All 4 of them, without any disregard for their lives or their own safety, came down the dike. 2 went to me, 2 went to the company commander.
Company
Both-
commander was also wounded when you stepped on the
Yes,
grenade?
he was waiting for me to get the radio to him, and he caught a little bit of the spray when the grenade exploded below my right foot.
Did you feel like that was okay because he kind of forced you to climb on the dike to move, and you felt like you
I
should-
didn't think it was okay. I didn't want
Yeah.
to get up on the dike. I
Right.
knew better, and he walked the dike. I suggested that he not walk it. I went down into the rice paddies, but I was knee deep in mud, so he got way ahead of me as I
Yeah.
was trudging through the rice paddy. Long story short, he gave me a direct order to get up on the dike.
Right.
Threatened me with an Article 15 if I didn't. I wanted to be a good soldier, so I got up on the dike. I no sooner got up on the dike, I looked down, and there it was, little hand-painted sign, a little red grenade painted on it, which told me immediately my first suspicion was that the dike was mined. I
Right.
knew it was mined, just didn't know where it was going to be. So I started walking down the dike, and I got about 15 paces from the company commander. I stepped on a Chi-Com grenade pressure device. It was a grenade that was actually buried below the surface of the ground, but any pressure on it would set it off. And as my luck had it, I stepped on
Right.
it with my right foot. It detonated. Unlike you see on television where some guys are blowing 10, 15 feet in
Right.
the air, I just stood there. I looked down, and I saw that the shell of the grenade was lodged below my knee in my leg. And at that point, I think the shock set in, and I just kind of keeled over and went down.
And the medics took over?
The medics took over. They, well, what happened was, aside from getting shrapnel on both legs, the top of my right foot split open, and a piece of shrapnel flew straight up into my throat, which I didn't realize at first, but I felt something in my mouth. And it went like that. I spit it out, and I saw it was a little pellet.
Wow.
So yeah, it damaged my larynx, but came right up into my mouth, and I got rid of it.
This is a picture of Tony. I don't know if you can see it. This is him at the, he looks very young in the picture.
Yes, he does.
21-year-old that was going to go home and get married right after this. Perfect. There's the picture.
You already knew who you were going to marry?
I was engaged at the time. I
Really?
was scheduled to get married on July 26th. My wife
good.
arranged the whole wedding ceremony and everything while I was in Vietnam.
And how long have you been married?
This past July, my wife and I celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary.
Oh, congratulations. Make sure you transmit this information. I say thank you for her service to you
Yeah.
and service to you over these years.
She went through a
That's
lot.
right.
She went
Yes.
through the Vietnam War with me.
And I want to acknowledge to America and far beyond that the women's always stood behind their men, and they always had to nurse them back and the family. So tell her we honor her for her service to
I
you.
will. Thank you very much. She'll appreciate that.
Yes, in addition to you serving, I want the young ones that are out there that are still serving today, and because you mentioned about the orders and following orders, how it's imperative that we continue to let people lead and our leaders lead, because sometimes they have a vision of where they have to go, because we don't want chaos out there in the jungles, because there's only one way in and one way out sometimes. Am I correct when I'm saying that?
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
And I know that I was an enlisted person for a long period of time, and my training over the 20 years have always been that if there was an officer to tell me to do something, and my thing was recon. So I had to go
Okay.
out there and look for those little miney things that were going on out there. But I know the tenacity of me doing what I had to do for the other guys in the back. So I want to reach out to, for you to let them know that there's a reason for this madness sometime.
I know.
All right?
I understand it.
So what we do what we have to do, and we try to get through, but our buddies are always there for us. And then with you having the situation in Vietnam, and you having a situation in Vietnam, and having your buddies there, do you still keep in contact with them, or did they get hurt as well, or what have you done? Because we have social media now bringing everybody closer. And you said 1967, all right? You're bringing that to the unit that you were in. Because someone just watching us served during that period of time, because we have a lot of veterans watching this news show. and a lot of Vietnam veterans here. What have you accomplished?
I belong to probably 30 or 40 different veterans organizations online, and I'm always in touch with most of them. Some of them were in the same unit that I was, but I didn't know because they were in different parts of the unit. But we identify with certain things, like that night at the bridge, for instance. The bridge being renamed Bastard's Bridge, that's how it's referred to nowadays. And I always try to tell my fellow veterans that I see and hear from online, because a lot of them are still going through a lot of PTSD actively. They're just not able to get treatment, or maybe they feel they don't need treatment. You know, and that's a shame, because we all do.
Well,
very important.
It's the stigmatism that goes along with it, with
That's
the
right.
mental illness. We're trying to
That's correct.
rectify that now. But the difference between when you served in Vietnam and you came back, and once you got yourself treated and you had to get on a plane and you're on your way back home and they release you, how did you feel that? Because a lot of veterans that came through here, like you said, Ed, they weren't welcomed home.
Yeah.
But you coming back wounded. How were you treated?
It didn't matter how we came home or whether we were wounded or not. Back in the 60s and the early 70s, we weren't treated very well at all coming back. We were spit on, called all kinds of different names, which I don't want to go into.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we don't, we just kind of let that roll.
Let me ask you, because I only have about 5 minutes left of the show, and I thought we'd spend 15 minutes on this. Instead, we're going to spend 5. What is your organization like? What are you doing? What is the Military Order of the Purple Heart, actually?
Military Order of the Purple Heart is an organization that's formed by Congress, or congressionally funded. We support all combat wounded veterans and active military who were wounded while on active duty. We fundraise. All monies we send go towards combat wounded veterans and active military personnel who are hospitalized. So we do everything we can to support, like I said, any combat wounded veteran and active military.
Our charter requires that to be a member of the Military Order of the Purple Heart, you had to have been wounded in combat.
Right.
So our membership is made up of 100% veterans who have been wounded in action. And we give 100% of whatever we collect on fundraising organizations that we do, or fundraising events, we give it back to the veterans one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
Are the community coming forward and donating to these to your organization, the Purple Hearts?
The community's been very well positioned at our doors no matter where we are in fundraising, whether it's a train station or a grocery store.
I just want to speak for the viewers. Are we as a community doing what we need to do for the Vietnam veterans now?
You can
now
do more.
Are we doing? We could do more. What do
You
you think we
definitely
should
do
do?
more.
Well, I would say yes, compared to what we came home to,
Right.
where we weren't welcomed at all. Today we are recognized, our sacrifice is being recognized today, where it wasn't 40, 50 years ago. So I would say things have improved tremendously, but I believe that there's always a little bit more that can be done.
If there's a veteran out there that can join your organization, where can they reach you?
They could reach us by calling either my home phone number.
Which is what?
My home phone number is 516-293-6219. We also have...
We're running out of time. Anybody, can the crew come up here? Come on, come on, come on.
Oh,
Dean?
being that the holidays are coming up, the Veteran News want to say happy holidays to everybody and
Happy
be safe.
Thanksgiving, everybody.
And be
Good.
safe for Thanksgiving.
Merry Christmas.
And get home and see your family and your mom.
Okay,
Yes.
Bob Lane, Loretta DeBrino, Donald Caulfield, and Dean Santiago. You're all behind me.
And once again,
Okay.
happy holiday.
Happy holidays,
And
everyone.
stay
Merry
safe.
Christmas, happy Kwanzaa,
And,
happy Hanukkah.
and thank you for your service. And thank you for coming back home.
Yes.
Thank you for
And
having us.
remember,
Thank you.
because of veterans like the ones here, the Purple Hearts, this
Where's
is why we have our
Patolino?
freedom for the
Patolino didn't
VFW.
come up here. All right. Thank you very
Yes.
much.
And thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Beautiful, guys.
I think we're still on. Here we go.
Yes.
Okay.
Phone number?
Email me, mardiv1optonline.net. in case you have any questions about the show.